All right, let's talk about Pokemon Go. We're going to dig into the secret history of a game that literally took over the entire world. Because, as it turns out, behind all the fun of catching a Pikachu, there's a story that is way more complex and, honestly, way more important than any of us ever imagined. I want you to just think back to that summer for a second. The parks, the streets, every city square, they were suddenly flooded with people. Everyone had their heads down, phones out, swiping like crazy at their screens. It really felt like the whole world was united by this one single goal. And it was awesome. It was just pure, simple fun. A huge collective adventure to go out and find these virtual creatures in our actual real world. We walked for miles, we met new people, we celebrated finding a rare Snorlax together. But what if I told you that while we were busy catching Pokemon, something else was busy catching us? Or at least catching our data? Yeah, because this was never just a game. See, beneath the surface of our Pokedexes, there was a much, much more ambitious mission going on. And it had very little to do with becoming a Pokemon master. It all started pretty quietly, actually, with a new feature they added a few years after the game launched. You remember these, right? AR mapping tasks. The game would ask you to scan a Pokestop, a statue, a cool mural, some unique storefront, by taking a short little video of it. And in return, hey, you'd get rewards. Maybe some Pokepoches, maybe even a rare Pokemon encounter. Seemed like a totally fair trade. But let's just pause for a second and really think about that. Why on earth would a company that makes a game about catching cute little monsters need millions and millions of detailed video scans of the real world? That question, that's the key that unlocks this whole secret. And the answer is that Niantic, the company behind Pokemon Go, which by the way was a spin-off from Google's own mapping division, they weren't just building a game, they were building a map of the world unlike anything that had ever existed before. And we are not talking about some small side project here. The scale of this is it's mind-blowing. Players submitted over 30 billion images and videos from their real-world environments. Every single scan was another data point, feeding this massive artificial intelligence. It was one of the biggest data collection experiments in history, and it was all disguised as a game. So what was this AI building? Something Niantic called a large geospatial model, or LGM. The easiest way to think about it is like a living, breathing, super detailed 3D copy of the entire planet, built piece by piece, scan by millions of us who had no idea what we were doing. And this is where it gets so clever. Niantic's AI would find a blind spot on its 3D map, let's say a tricky back alley or maybe a brand new monument. Then it would spawn an ultra-rare Pokemon right there. And of course, a dedicated player, desperate for the catch, would go to that spot, get a prompt for an AR mapping task, and help improve the game by, you guessed it, filling in that exact blind spot for Niantic. It was a perfect self-fueling mapping machine. So, what was the end goal here? If the final prize for us players was a shiny legendary, what was the real final prize for Niantic? Well, the answer pulls back the curtain on the entire business model. This timeline just lays it all out. After years and years of collecting data disguised as gameplay, Niantic essentially split itself in two. This whole event, which some people call the Niantic Schism, made their entire strategy crystal clear. So on one side, you had the games division that got sold off to keep running Pokemon Go and other games. But on the other side, that's where the real prize was, Niantic Spatial, a brand new company whose only product was that unbelievably detailed, player-built 3D map of the world. You see, the game was never the product, it was the factory. So who would even buy a map like this? Well, companies that are building the future of automation. Robotics firms like Coco Robotics, they use it to navigate their little delivery bots with centimeter-level precision. That's way better than traditional GPS. So think about it. Every time you scanned a statue to get a Pidgey, you're actually helping train a robot how to drive down your street. And that brings us all the way back to you, the player, because this completely reframes your entire experience. You weren't just playing a game, you were working. You were, without knowing it, performing this highly sophisticated job of geospatial surveying. This table just lays it out, plain and simple. From 2016 to 2019, our goal was catching Pokemon. Their goal was mapping how we walk around. From 2020 to 2023, we were all about raids and AR tasks. They were building 3D models of our world. And just recently, while we were out hunting the rarest monsters, we were actually just refining their 3D map for a bunch of robots. One historian who studied this whole era put it perfectly, and this line, it really sticks with you. The player was not the customer, nor even the product. The player was the unpaid surveyor of a new geospatial order. You weren't the one being sold to. Your labor was the thing being harnessed. And that leaves us with this really fascinating and, yeah, kind of unsettling question. Pokemon Go was just the biggest, most obvious example. It really makes you wonder, as we spend more and more of our lives in these digital worlds, in what other games, what other apps are we the unpaid surveyors? What else are we building without even knowing it?